Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Cerberus at the Improv. I am one of your hosts, Peyman Askari. I am joined by my co-host. Let's go with Mr. Andre Maloche. Andre, how's it going out there in Quebec?
It's going well. There's no more snow. We're starting to garden until the communists will forbid us to have residential gardening. So we still have the chance now.
You still have until Monday. And
Yes, maybe Tuesday afternoon.
Tuesday.
yeah.
Tuesday.
All right, Tim, what's going on with you?
In process of moving from the old apartment into a new house, and so I'm in my office space right now, trying to get things sorted out, and being very exciting because all my laundry and stuff is somewhere else. I have no idea where. So I went to the store and bought a shirt and tie for the episode. I am wearing pants for those who might be so interested. So don't get
You can't
excited.
prove it, though. And please don't prove it.
Well, the RCMP, the RCMP can.
Yes. Oh, hey, wait a minute.
Okay.
Get off my lawn. I have a lawn. That's crazy.
Good. You have a lawnmower?
Yes, my son, you ready for this? Bought an electric mower.
Electric mower. Okay.
Are you going to disown him today, or you'll wait until after the weekend?
No, I think in about 3 weeks the motor will burn out.
When I moved here 17 years ago, I was like a little freak, and I bought an electric chainsaw. And after 3-4 years, I understood, and I went to buy a steel chainsaw. And now I'm starting to understand what it is. Electric chainsaw. Never buy that again.
They're okay as long as the branch you're cutting is less than 1/16 of an inch.
1/16. Yeah.
I can cut them with my bare hands. Why do I need a chainsaw?
When I was 17ish, I worked as a laborer on a construction site, and there was a fella in his 30s, had his own truck all done up. This is in the 80s, so he's all macho and done up, and really had his truck all nice for his own, side construction work. And so I was laboring for him. He was so particular that he would measure to a 1/16 of an inch. This is on a construction site. We're laying foundation, doing footings, right? It's all like 2x12 plywood and junk.
Something rough.
Right. Measure to a 1/16 of an inch.
Yeah.
1 mil mechanical pencil, mark an X on the discard side, and then use a chainsaw.
Yes, that's it.
Was he drunk when he did that?
Sober every time.
Thank God he was drunk. He could cut straight.
Before we get started, hello, Nikki. Nikki is a
Wow, she's back.
BBC supporter.
Back.
Yeah, she's back, and she says she's finally free to watch.
Yay.
So
Yay.
Good to see you,
Are
Nikki.
you coming to save us on election night? I think I'm going to call it E-Day.
Election day, or
Yeah, E-Day.
All right.
As long as it is not Doomsday.
Well, E comes after D.
Okay.
With bells.
Oh
See,
man,
second. I have to wear pants. She gets to wear bells. This is wrong.
she's a she. She's a beautiful young lady. You're just one of us.
I feel like I'm being oppressed.
Okay, you wear bells. I will wear pompons.
Okay, we are officially off to a terrible start.
Let's be a little bit more serious here.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Tim, and you just introduce if you remember. I have no idea what the schedule is for today.
What are we doing today? Oh, we are, as he looks at his watch, we are going to finish up the campaign discussion. So this is 4 of 4, I believe,
Yes.
focusing on Peyman's campaign in his district and his experience, particularly with debates, and how he, as a professional, well-educated man with a successful business, a square head on his shoulders, and the ability to stand in front of people, how has that translated into the debate in the political spectrum, and what can be learned by other candidates through the democratic institution that they can take from this and apply to their own campaigns. So, and then we will talk about some other stuff and maybe slag the liberals a little bit because they make such easy targets. And we'll go from there. So the floor is yours, Peyman.
All right, so we'll try to keep this first segment to only 30 minutes because this is the sixth and final debate. So it's only one debate that I'm going to be discussing. I have a whole bunch of notes I took, but I'll try not to monologue it. People might fall asleep. This debate was in Whistler, British Columbia. So Whistler is a resort town. I've been coming here since 1990, and it used to be a really good community. Very good salt of the earth human beings. They're wonderful people. And then over the years, as the mountain became more profitable and it became bigger, it started drawing in more international tourists. It got to a point where, and I'm not one that supports mass immigration, but it got to a point where the business model of the mountain, it didn't really align with using local labor. Maybe the people that came here, the people that came here disrespected the culture and it caused friction with the locals. Maybe there just wasn't enough locals. Maybe the locals didn't want to work for the price point. So they started bringing Australian employees, and then now they're bringing employees from the UK, Ireland principally. The reason I say that is because the locals, they're not up front and center anymore. I live right next to the resort. You don't see a single local here. They're all 5 kilometers out. They have a diner, and I figured these are hardworking Canadians, and hardworking Canadians are common sense. The debate was not what I expected. Like, it was very hostile. Definitely towards me, it was hostile, but even towards the conservative candidate. I'll give you an example. The way that they ask questions, they use an online application. So you can submit your question, and the question that gets upvoted the most gets put to the candidate that you choose. So it seems like a democratic system, right? Except the Liberals, they got a whole bunch of people to ask the most absurd questions, like Mr. Roy, the conservative candidate. We are in a housing crisis, but yet you evicted somebody illegally, or you increased their rent. Can you please speak to this? And I'm thinking, like, first of all, it was a total lie. Like, there was no truth to it. And I'm thinking, like, how is this a federal issue? And then the idiot mayor that was there, and if you're listening here, you should resign. You do not deserve to be the mayor of a city if you come to a debate with anything other than a shirt and tie on. He comes across like he just got out of a construction site, and he starts heckling the conservative candidate. The conservative candidate is like, well, you should know that I don't own any properties. How do you want me to answer that? And the mayor is like, why don't you just say yes or no? And at that point, like, the entire thing, it eroded my confidence that people would ask a stupid question like that the moderator would allow that the mayor would denigrate his office to that extent.
Can
I don't know.
I ask you a question?
Sure.
What was the mayor doing there? Was he part of the debate? Was he part of the team that was organizing the debate?
No, I'm starting to understand this. Like, the mayor and council, they represent almost the will of the people, and they're a form of uniting the people. So most of these debates you go to, well, not most. Squamish came, Whistler came, West Vancouver didn't. I don't think any of the other, only 2 of the 4 debates the mayor came. But I think they're really abusing their position, though. Like in Squamish, the same thing. I looked at the guy, like the way he was dressed. I'm like, this guy's not voting PPC. It's a woke town, and it's the woke towns. The mayor comes out in force and try to steer the direction of the election.
So that last experience was painful. Like you said, you had many questions that were hostile. Or were they targeting federal issues?
No. I'll give you an example. One of the questions that was put to me was, what is your government going to do about waste? And I didn't understand the question. And I was like, do you mean like garbage? Do you mean sewage? And then I think she started, I don't know if she was answering or heckling. And then the moderator got in, and I didn't know how to answer. And I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, well, this is a resort. It should be a resort issue. Like, this isn't even municipal. So I gave an example. Like, I have dogs, right? Like, I walk my dogs, and I notice when it's tourist season, so many people have been invited to bring their dogs over that there's like dog poop everywhere. And the resort, because nobody wants to walk through the forest when that's lying around. They have to send their staff around to clean that up. That's not a federal issue. Definitely, it's not provincial. It's not even municipal. It's the resort.
That's a corporate issue.
It's a corporate issue.
That's corporate.
Yeah, it's like if I invite you guys over to my house, it's my job to vacuum the house before you show up.
Yes. Yeah, the host of a private property.
Yes.
There was another issue I'll bring up. It's becoming abundantly clear to me, and many people probably knew this beforehand. These debates are they're designed to help one party win. But I always thought that they would share the questions beforehand with the candidate. But like the debate format for this one was people from the audience, either online or in person, they can ask a question, and the question can go to two candidates. Well, when you do that, most of the questions go to the incumbent and the official opposition. So the Liberal and the Conservative got most of the questions. The exception was me. So many of the questions were targeted at me, which for the most part it backfired because it gave some attention to me. I got more questions than the Green candidate or the NDP candidate.
Good.
So that there in your opinion, there's a progress, but what you're saying is that all those debates are part of a rigged system to help major parties.
Yeah, we could look at it this way. If Cerberus at the Improv held debates, we would ask the question in such a way that our audience, the three of us, Nikki, Sue, they would appreciate. And then that debate would draw in that audience. Some left it. That should be nice. Somebody who believes that climate change is man-made, they wouldn't come to that debate because they know the question.
Of course, they would not.
Yeah, but from their perspective, we are biased because our question is not asking, what can we do to stop the climate emergency?
Yes. So this is the polarization in public sphere, right? So for public discussion, when the host intentionally polarizes the material, someone will always feel left out or biased against.
Yes, but you remember with the national debate on those debate in French and in English that I didn't watch. I have to make this precision. You had four people: the Liberal, the Conservative, the Bloc, and the NDP. 4 climate change believers. I will put this quote unquote. So like what you're saying, Peyman, is that all those questions, they imply that, you have to start, the basis consensus is that climate change exists. And if you do not believe in this, which is supposed to be a belief, so you are marginalized. And
but yes, absolutely. But it's a balancing act. Like you want to give the option of having a democratic process. So you want people to come up and ask a question. And, when you do that, you open it up for manipulation. But that's something that you can do. But at least as a moderator, you should have the integrity to ask a question in the form, and you ask yourself before asking the question, what would be the best way to make this objective? For example, climate change. You could say every candidate has 10 minutes to speak to their views on climate change. Like you don't frame it in a way that you want to go in one direction. So when you say, how are you going to tackle the climate emergency? That's going in one direction. When you let people come up and ask a question, so many people have died, billions have died because of climate change. Why do you deny it? And you give them
where are the facts? Because in the debate, you would have, at least if you would have the opportunity to bring facts and not opinion or mainstream media opinion. Because if you arrive in the debate and immediately everybody is against you because they believe something not based on fact but on general opinion, you can never argue or you can never debate with people like this. It's very difficult.
So this appears to be a cultural phenomena where the mob supports the mob. That they've accepted a particular story, and it doesn't matter what arena they move into in the public sphere, it will support that new paradigm.
Yeah,
right?
but
for example, any question about climate change is preloaded with words emergency or etc. Right? So that
Yes,
right,
unconsciously.
right. So unconsciously, because so much of the population accepts that this is the floor. If this is the floor, if this is the foundation of the issue, then you can't. Then every conversation about climate is framed by the response to the emergency, not a discussion about climate from a general perspective, right? Like when we talk about conservationism versus environmentalism, that doesn't even enter because the people who are framing the story are environmentalists,
Yes,
right?
Right,
activists.
right.
They.
But we could look at it a different way. So when we say it's the mob reinforcing the mob,
Mhm.
another way is the debate commission. Let's take West Vancouver. I don't know what the population of Whistler is. West Vancouver's got about 40,000 people, I think. The debate commission in West Vancouver is an institution that people believe in. So they go to them for these debates. And because that institution has the backing of 40,000 people, so it has 40,000 viewers,
Well,
they
40,000 in theory. In practice, we have a lot of.
right, but what I'm trying to say is they have maybe 5,000 viewers, and we, the three of us, we have 0 viewers in West Van.
Yes, yeah.
So we need to create our counter institution, and you have 4 years to do that, 3 years and 11 months, and that's what we need to do. We've ceded too much territory.
Well, it's true on many topics. You talk about climate. I will not use the expression. I will talk about climate. I will talk about what Tim mentioned, environment. The difference between environment and conservatism.
Yeah.
Everybody would say, "I will want to preserve nature." That would be another vocabulary that you would use. So you would change the narrative, and you would change what Tim was mentioning. We're stuck in a box, and we cannot think outside of it.
So then, if we're stuck in a box, then we get a new box, or we build our own box, right? So, like some of the things that I'm thinking of moving forward, ideas I've wanted to work on in the past, were to actually create public forums where people could come and discuss issues without concerns that they would be boxed in or or minimized, right? So and can we bring back that arena of public debate and public discussion from the outside? Can we make a place where people feel comfortable of all perspectives, of all political, and where they can come back and do that? Because and it's not just Peyman's experience. I have 3 candidates here in the Valley who are sharing the same stories.
Well,
Right.
I can say I interviewed Nancy Mercier. She's from Madawaska Restigouche, riding for the People's Party in New Brunswick, and she was telling me that she was very well welcomed as a candidate. She was able to express herself. The debate were very civilized, and she was expressing herself in French in her writing, and she's bilingual. But I know I asked her the question. She's much more comfortable in English, but the debate was in French, and she performed well, and she said it was very respectful. So I was talking about Peyman's experience and some other experience of candidate, and I was comparing this. So from one region or province to another, I think it's different. But in New Brunswick, it's still it's liberal, most of it. So I was surprised of the level of professionalism that she was describing. That was a positive point compared to what you're talking about, Peyman.
Well, it's the appearance of professionalism. Like the moderator doesn't say, "Now we're going to hear from shithead Peyman Askari of the Fascist Party." They don't make it obvious.
They don't. They
The
imply
crowd,
it. Yes.
yeah, but it's like I compare it to a judge where somebody comes in, a defendant, and the judge is very professional. "How are you doing, sir? Could you repeat that, sir? Thank you." And then at the end, he's like, "All right, we're going to sentence you to the max because I'm siding with the government." And it's the same thing from the audience. Like they don't throw tomatoes at me, but I see like
it's because they don't have any
they can't afford it. They can't afford it because of inflation. But besides the inflation issue, like the NDP Liberal candidates, they're like, we will increase healthcare spending, we will increase this, that, the other, and you get like thunderous applause. And then the conservative and the People's Party candidate, we make a common sense argument, and it's like a cough, you know?
Do they have, like in show in, in United States, they have a sign, applaud,
Yeah.
boo.
Yeah, they got a heavy set guy in a tank top walking around.
How they call it, crowd cheering, if I remember the expression.
Yeah, but it's funny, you're joking, but they do that. So in the West Van one, they planted, like the NDP planted people that in the middle of the NDP candidate's speech, they would clap, and everyone else claps like seals.
Yeah.
Like seals.
True. It's true. It's such an easy thing to make people. You get an audience moved into the right emotional standpoint, and you can get them to move like waves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it is bias after that.
Let me add one other thing, a couple of other things. So yeah, self-governed plant people, exactly. The conservative candidate, so somebody came up, and he was actually very rude at the beginning before the debates. He came up and he shook the conservative candidate's hand in front of me, and he's like, "Oh, so nice of you to finally show." I was like, that's not necessary. Later, he asked a question. He's like, "What will you like? Will you legislate anything on abortion?" And the conservative candidate said, "I will not sign any legislation on abortion. I will not legislate anything on abortion," which is pretty clear to me. That's I will not sign anything. And then the guy's like, "But what does that mean? What does that mean?" And then another girl that happened to be a volunteer for the Liberal candidate, she started heckling him. She's like, "I know that you voted something. Some woman said something about abortion," and the moderator didn't shut it down. And I thought it was just an extremely poor taste.
You mean somebody in the audience started to talk like this?
Yes, but it wasn't just somebody. It was the Liberal Party volunteer. Like, it was a Liberal Party campaign manager, basically.
You do this in a play, in a theater, and you will evacuate the troublemaker immediately. It is what? It is lack of. It is a vaudeville.
There's this little thing called decorum.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry for the
moderator didn't say anything. There was no reprimand. It was so insanely liberal that, like, you watch this happening in real time, and you almost want a scorecard. You're like, all right, which community is going to evaporate first when the communism takes over?
So it shows, in your opinion, with the experience you have now, it shows that all those debates, most of them, they are oriented with a system that promotes the major parties and not ideas. I would say, forget about the political party. What about debates on ideas?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is what I'm saying. And Tim has mentioned this numerous times. The election is determined in the 3 years and 11 months prior to the election. That's when you can go, and that's when you're supposed to educate people on ideas. When they're in that room, it's a job interview. So they're like, all right, Mr. Askari, it's a job interview where the job requirements have nothing to do with the job. What are you going to do with the waste management? What are you going to do with the potholes on the road and the lack of reflectors on the road? What are you going to do for public transit? And there's some other minor things, like, what are you going to do about BC ferries? I'm like, the word BC is right in the name. It's not the federal government.
It's not federal.
Right there. Potholes, there's your mayor.
It's not federal.
Right,
but Nancy Mercier, she was telling me in the interview, she went around New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, because she's like Tim, a president of the association in the Atlantic provinces, and she was saying that many people they are not interested in federal topics. They will go to vote, but locally they are not aware of nothing what is happening. And she was shocked because she was going into small cities and talking to people, talking about national issues like climate, like immigration, like natural resources, taxing oil companies, all those great topics that are supposed to be the concern of people now. She said they were not interested in, or they didn't know about it.
In my closing, Go ahead.
There's a certain beauty in having a highly centralized government that infiltrates all levels of government right down to the municipality. And that is that the municipality can basically ignore everything until it's told or paid to do a thing. The province can basically ignore everything until it's told or paid to do a thing, in which case it's literally pretending to be a PPP, doing the will of the overarching government. And then anytime anybody has a legitimate complaint, debates come up. What are you going to do about the potholes? Your mayor's right there, right? And the mayor says, "Well, we get our money budget from the province, and so you have to talk to the." And then the province says, "Well, we get our from so and so." And the phenomena that you're saying of infiltrators within the plants, like self-govern calls them, the only effective response is we find a way to do the same thing, but to do it with more professionalism.
Well, you mentioned they receive the money, but they also receive the order.
That's correct. So the public is simply not aware of who's responsible to do what, except to complain that the thing needs to be done. And that's legitimate. You've got problem potholes and et cetera. And I don't know, maybe the mayor is in cahoots with the tire company and right. Who knows, right? Just make work projects. But govern is right. So when we're looking for how do we solve the problem of preloaded events, public debate, etc., newspaper reporting, etc., etc., etc. How do we overcome this except to use the same tools but more professionally?
Well, one thing that changed a lot since 30 years is social media. And we could think that social media will help to have a more professional approach. But the risk of social media is that we can fall into echo chambers where your supporter will follow you, and it is virtual. So you can even kick somebody out virtually because you do not appreciate the comments. So
yes,
the level of professionalism will that will be needed will be more rigorous. Yeah, that's the risk.
I have to use an example where we talk about how it has become very clear that the online world is a completely different universe than the real world. And that the siloization, wrong word, but you know what I mean, right? Of ghettoization.
Yes, thanks for the
internet communities, regardless of the platform, is a rat utopia in there, and they are feeding on each other and then kicking off their dopamine by being who's the most clever or who's the most abusive, who's the most triggering, who causes the most clickbait. Meanwhile, we just moved in to this house here, and Jeff put his sign up on our lawn, and there are 3 neighbors right beside us. 1, 2, 3 blue signs for the local conservative candidate, because that's the community we live in, right? 56% projection to win a seat. So, right. So this is, however, I go out and I drive, and one of the fellas is on his lawn, and I stick my arm out and I wave as I drive by, and he smiles and stops what he's doing and takes the time to wave back, knowing our sign is right there, right? The real world is completely different from what happens when you stick a fire under somebody's brand at a rally or some public event, or even worse, within the silos of the internet space. So the question is, I see the People's Party having an extraordinarily high uptick in our effectiveness in our online marketing. We've gotten much better at it. We've got much more sophisticated at it. As we find each other more, we're able to amplify the messaging, et cetera. So very, very quickly. And that's been very useful. Out here, out my front door, out on, nobody knows, nobody cares.
No, and you were talking about lawn signs.
Yeah.
Thank God it was not vandalized, but somewhere, that's the difference between reality and fiction, or reality and virtual reality, like civism that we can have professionally. And I think Peyman mentioned that many times in the debate you participated in, the level of professionalism, the diplomacy. I think that's maybe
So
a Persian quality.
yeah, what do we call it?
That's
It wasn't.
important.
You and I were talking yesterday, and I said most people haven't gone to war. I'm talking about business. So in
Yes.
business, like if somebody does something wrong and you pick up an email and you start using f-bombs or you put like all caps, it's going to escalate. So you always try to be delicate and diplomatic.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
I see it. I see it with correspondence, with emails.
Yeah.
You can see it, like you mentioned, online in many domains. You will not act the same way in reality in front of somebody that you, even if you don't like the person, you will be more polite.
The risk is higher. The stakes are higher, right?
Yes,
Because
well, the risk or the fist.
if it's
No.
If you start to be rude with somebody and
or in this day and age, you might get hit by an elbow. So
That's right. You might get an elbow in the nose. In debates, and look at the psychological profile of people who participate in debates, and oftentimes they find out about the debate through social media. So that already infers the type of personality who is likely to attend a debate, depending on age group, of course, because like you said, you had people who attended the debate who were clearly not social media files, right? Because that's just not, but they were socially engaged, they were community engaged, they were politically engaged. So you're like your 70s and up, right? The boomers and up. The vast majority of them don't spend time on Twitter insulting the latest, whatever, right? So you have these different age groups, and then you'll have different personality types based on their political leanings. Issues that we have with like people destroying signs and whatnot. I just call that straight up hooliganism. That's people who can, because nobody's throwing them in the paddy wagon, right? Because it is actually a federal offense, right? But nobody's punishing that. And then people who are somewhat activated, and these are the still protesters, but they're a little bit activists. They will attend the events and they will clap like seals, or they will have one who does start the clapping, and they will have the assistant who beaks off and gets away with it because the moderator is actually not moderating. There's no disciplinary behavior. There's no pattern. So these people are getting away with this. I think for a candidate to move away, we must move into the 3 years and 11 months concept and train and educate candidates in that period, and train and educate supporters in that period. So we have
yes.
to have, right?
To
So
be
my-
able to educate those people, you will need also teachers, people
Yep.
who are able to teach with experience and knowledge, because you can lose a lot of time trying to teach,
Yes.
how to behave as a candidate or as a MP or MLA with professionalism, like talking with a microphone, the presence, like you mentioned, Peyman, arriving. I'm sorry if you're in public office with I for 20 years I didn't wear a tie. I was a little bit eccentric, but I always had nice clothes. And my father was always wearing a tie when he was he was a watchman in a high school.
Right.
And children 12, 13 years old, he was saying to them in French, vous, monsieur, mademoiselle, even if they were 12. So the first of all, the mutual respect and the way you dress.
So I want to address Govern's question. Govern, there were many different debate formats. Some of them had like only the moderator asked the question. Some was the moderator asked the question, and then audience members come up and ask the question. Sometimes the audience members would write the question down, and the moderator would screen them. Sometimes it was an online application where you submit a question, the one that got upvoted the most gets put. Sometimes it was a mix of them. Honestly, I don't like getting the audience to ask a question. It's counterintuitive, but I don't think it's the right way to do it, because they just come up and the other parties just abuse the system anyway.
Yes, and you can have maybe if people go and ask a question, you ask them to be short, let's say 30 seconds, and some people will whine and whine and whine for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and you will say, okay, can you get to the point? What is your question for the candidate? So that's another, but there's no perfect system. There's no perfect
I
system.
don't know what this question means. What if
I
you're the
like that. I like that. That's good, Self. I like that. So this, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Govern, but this goes back to the planting concept, right? So if you were to bring 2 or 3 key individuals with you who sat in among the audience and they were the audience and they spoke up and they clapped or they, right, nodded and, vocalized approval, then that seeding the audience forces a change, forces a shift in the opposition, like not just the opposition speakers, but the opposition that is the audience. Because if an audience realizes, oh, we're not going to get away with this because he has no support. And if I'm sitting right beside this liberal supporter and I go woof 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 when you hit the nail on the head, little Miss Thing over there is a lot more inclined to think I might elbow her. There is value in that. Yeah. And yes, you will need more than 2. So this moves into solutions-based, right? Solutions-based debating.
Well, we can go,
So
we can.
we're now at risk of fomenting full contact debates.
Well, full contact debate. You could go
Elbows
back
up.
to union assembly when they want to vote
Yes.
against or for a strike,
Yeah.
and you have some goons in the audience
Yeah.
that are pushing people.
That's right.
For
Yeah.
who you have to vote. You
Yeah.
really, I know where you live.
And is
So,
that not what's happening here?
well,
Right? Because you got the
psychologically,
Unitary,
yes.
right? The
Psychologically,
Unitary
yes.
brings in their goons, right?
Try-
And the
try-
Garden Party has their own variety of goon,
Yes.
that the Garden Goon, right?
Because if you go, like you mentioned, Peyman, let's say I would go in one of your debate in the audience. I'm the only one, and I'm surrounded by NDP supporters, and I go to the microphone and I ask a question that is intelligent.
Yeah.
Maybe I will be booed just because I asked the question because
Yes.
I'm in a hostile environment. But
That's
if I
right.
have
Yeah.
2 colleagues in the back that
Yeah.
are, let's say, 6'6", and they are like this, and they wear People's Party T-shirt, and you see all their muscle, you can impress a lot of people with the image. And but this is not this is not the purpose of a debate. Debate is supposed to be
It
for
should not
ideas.
have to be. Yes.
It should not. No.
Yeah.
So let me just tell a story. In Seashell, this gentleman came up to me, and there was a break in the middle of the debate, and he shook my hand and he said, "Thank you very much." He said it really loud. He's like, "You're better than any of these other fucking knuckleheads." They all heard me, and like he's a tough guy. Like he almost crushed my hand when he shook my hand.
Yeah.
He's a truck driver. He and then he starts talking about how his son and kids have no future, and he lost his wife, and he had tears in his eye. Like that makes a difference. It's a lot harder for the audience to be just completely woke when you have somebody like that there.
Yes.
And well,
Yeah.
like I said, especially if he's 6'6".
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think wokeism is a mask. QUE, MASQUE. I think it's an act, right? I think is it a desperate attempt to find a group and to be approved.
Yes. It's an immature. It's an immature
right?
reaction.
So then someone who comes along who's real, like this gentleman, a real dad, a real husband, right? He comes along and he's not wearing any mask. He says what he thinks, and he doesn't shroud it. He doesn't modify it. He just says what it is. And what this does is this breaks the story. Well, it breaks. There's a fourth wall being played. It's a false fourth wall because they're the ones. The audience is forcing the language onto the speakers, right? And so he comes in and says, "No, who is this?"
Well,
in theater, there's an individual who actually does this on purpose, and it's not the Joker, but there's another individual.
It was the media. The media was supposed to be the fifth estate.
Yeah.
And now maybe the fifth estate it's Brookfield, I suppose. Because they don't do their job, and you expect as a citizen to go there and to be able to ask a rational and moderate question, and
So then, yeah,
you're censored. You're censored.
if you took 3 or 4 people like this gentleman with you, so you found 3 or 4 supporters who were like this, who had quite enough, thank you very much,
Some people
and
call them
right, and were prepared to attend events, and this would apply to any candidate, right? That they would provide the moral support in that when you're answering the ugly, awful question, you're finding those 4 faces that support you,
Yeah.
and you're talking to them. And then all the BS of trying to intimidate you and overwhelm you with the nonsense fades away, and you're
that.
only talking to your supporters.
That's why I was referring to Union Assembly. You said you
Yeah.
call them supporter. Me, I would
Yeah.
call them bodyguard.
Yes. Well, yeah.
No, but
Uh,
in this 3 years and 4 months of training, you would need people who it's not about intimidating people. It's about showing that you need diplomacy and respect in an audience.
And we shouldn't.
Whatever idea you have.
Yeah, we shouldn't even have to have conversation like this. But here we are.
No, but
But
but that's a symptom of what is happening.
yeah. So then,
We're describing the symptom.
yeah.
let me
And I like
let me give you another. This is the only time I got a clap in the last debate. Now I say clap because it was just one guy. Every candidate had an opportunity to ask 2 other candidates a question, and I knew I had to pick something that they couldn't wiggle out of with their talking points. So my question was, the Liberal Party they've kicked out an attorney general that did her job and investigated fraud, corruption. They obstructed justice with Commissioner Lucky, and now we know that they illegally invoked the Emergencies Act because of the Mosley decision. And I put the question in this order to the NDP candidate and the Liberal candidate: how can you in good conscience support or prop up this government? And I did it in that order for a specific reason, because the first person gets 60 seconds, the second person gets 30. And I wanted to trip up the NDP candidate, because that bastard, pardon my French, he's been going around, he's saying, we don't support the Liberal Party. We need to hold them accountable, when, they're the ones that have caused all this hell.
That's a pure lie.
First of all, when I asked the question, somebody started clapping like violently, which I thought was funny. But then the NDP candidate says, we will hold the Liberal Party accountable, and we have not supported them at all throughout this. And everybody started laughing at him, like, because even for the woke room, it was too much of a lie. And then I got to the Liberal candidate, and all he has is talking points, and he panicked. I'm surprised, because he's the incumbent, and he said, "We've
it
lifted
doesn't mean intelligent.
Yeah, but you don't need to be intelligent. You just need to lie. You need to know how to lie to the people." So he said, "We've lifted 350,000 people out of poverty. Mark Carney's navigated Brexit. I am proud of this party." And there was no boos, but considering it was a Liberal heavy room and it didn't resonate, it fell flat. So that was my one victory.
It's if your boss has done the devil's work and you're being challenged whether or not you support it, that's your moment to double down.
You're talking about now.
Right? That's Machiavellian, right? Yes, we did. It needed to be done. We do not apologize, and we will do it again.
No, that's the player of Dostoevsky. You have your last kopeck and you go and play, because even if your children are starving, you go and play and you will win a fortune.
Yeah.
Because you have, but you're right. You double down. It's gambling.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Hesitation.
That's politics. That's gambling. Politics is gambling. We gamble with ideas. We play with idea. We gamble with the opponent.
Well, then they're not gambling very well, because consumer behavior and mass psychology, and these are not difficult subjects to teach your average person. Right?
Well, for you it is not, Tim, but for the majority of people, like I say, who are politically illiterate, it's more complicated, because they want some simple topics, like Peyman mentioned, local problems, provincial problems, or corporate problems that do not concern the federal government.
Right.
Andre, let me just add one thing. I know I'm making it sound like 100% of the questions were stupid.
No, I'm sure they were not. I'm sure they were not.
No, but like, even the ones that weren't stupid, they were framed in a way that it was stupid. So like, how do we balance the budget? Let's stop subsidizing oil and gas, which is okay, but let's subsidize everything. Stop all subsidies. You
No,
know?
yes, but you
Yeah.
know, it's when you're talking about those questions, no energy, no progress. It's like you want the butter and the money of the butter.
So
They those questions are so biased.
well, but okay, so here
Yeah.
we are. Here we are. We're like right of center. Our party is right of center, not heavily right of center, believe it or not, right? But we are right of center, and we keep talking about the Overton window shifting, right? The Overton
Yes,
window. And then you go to a debate, and the Overton window just kind of slides back to where it came from. You know, like
the Overton window
what
is
are we
closed.
missing?
It's closed and
As,
locked.
like as a party, what are we missing?
You know, I was going to mention this earlier, Tim. You asked, how do we train in that 3 years and 11 months?
Yeah.
Get
You know,
every
I would just make a small comment. Instead of using the word train, I would say educate.
okay, educate, prepare.
Training. It
double down on the
reminds
word
me of
train.
Pavlov.
Prepare, educate the candidates. At the very least, they should attend as many town council meetings in every community in their riding. Even better if you run for municipal office. I'm not saying run to win, but just half-ass it so you get your face out there and you meet people. And
Yeah,
I would recommend doing this provincially too. Following provincial politics is a nightmare, though. It's a beast.
yeah, but there's a lot of people who, like I said, they are politically illiterate. It's not because they're not intelligent. It's because they are not interested to politics at all, and they don't follow municipal, provincial, or federal politics, the laws, the debate. You're right,
Yeah, but
Peyman. You're right. It's important.
it's not politics. It's the business of lying to people. So you need to go. It's really. I'm not saying we should lie, but if I know what lie they want me to tell them, I can kind of preempt that. But you get into these debates, and the lady's asking about waste or potholes, and I'm like, I assumed people weren't that low information.
Then we get to a point where we just say that out loud.
Well, I can't tell the woman, vote for me, you're an idiot.
Why not?
Well, I guess I could. She's not going to vote for me anyway.
You know, I say I'm a former candidate. I was selected, but after that I resigned because I had some issues. But I remember last year when I was selected, I went to the pharmacy with my wife and we started to talk. And I always go to the pharmacy. One woman in the pharmacy, she always recognized me. I'm always well dressed, even if I look like shit because I work in the garden. And my wife is always elegant. And she said, we started to talk. And I said, oh, by the way, because I had an issue with the pharmacy, I said, by the way, I'm a candidate for the People's Party of Canada. Immediately she looks at me, she says, I will vote for you. She said, I don't care about politics. I never watch. My husband does. I said, instead of saying this, do something for me. Go and see the website of the party and go read the policies. Or if you don't, ask your husband to do it. Just don't give your vote blindly like this to somebody because I dress well. Or so we had this discussion because we already had a previous relationship. So that would be an advice, like you mentioned. They see your face, and they see your face in town hall. They see your face locally, and you talk to people. So somebody who's a candidate is a public figure. He has to be part of the public life.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. That's something when we do election night in Canada, one of the things I want to bring up when I pop in and out of the show is to encourage candidates who have an interest to stay with the party as the candidate and do exactly what Peyman was saying. You get out there and you attend these things and you watch how it works. You don't have to necessarily run. You go to school board meetings, right? And watch how they work. Go to municipal town hall and watch how it works. 2026 in BC, is a municipal election year, by all means, hop in, and run, and continue to train and expose yourself to maintain yourself as a candidate out in the public, and that will develop your skill, and the public will see you and become aware of you. Like the woman who said to Andre, based on his character, based on what she knew of him as a person, he and his wife in the community and how they engaged with the vendors and other people in the community, knew that he and his wife were people of character and worth supporting.
Yes, that's what, and maybe the advice for Peyman now, you have to write a book.
Right.
You have to write a book about your experience. So all
memoirs of a candidate.
Memoirs. That would be good.
I'm writing mine.
Would be good. That I can do the prologue if you want, and you can sell it on Amazon, and every candidate will have to buy it. No, but the idea of educating people is important. When you have experience, it's important to share it with other people, like what you're doing now.
Yeah, and the hard part is a candidate who is new to this in the People's Party of Canada has gone out there and got, pardon my French, beaten the fuck up.
Yes,
right? Out there, I mentioned this earlier today to another group. The law and the media consider the PPC just a purple branded small fringe minority.
Yes. I was referring. I was thinking about the same thing.
Right.
Fringe minority.
And so that means we have to be extra mindful of our character, extra mindful of our presentation, and to be aware that at every turn we have nothing but obstacles.
Well, what you're referring to is exactly what Peyman was saying earlier. Organizing debate needs having an association that would be neutral, not partisan, but that will bring the level of professionalism, and it cannot come from the establishment. It cannot come from there.
Andre, you mentioned that was perfect. You said it's neutral. Sorry, it's partisan, but it's not neutral in the sense that we want our version of the truth to get out, which is identifying the issues, talking about things, debating, not their version, which is talking points. So it's biased, but it's not partisan. Any one of the parties, if they're willing to look at the main issues and talk about things, debate, discussion, then we want to draw them into our arena. But right now, the arena is it's talking points, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. It's a clown show.
And don't forget what you mentioned. Bring them into our arena. I would say the arena of an association that is neutral would mean, for the Conservative, for example, will you send your candidate for those debates, or will you forbid them to go? That's another censorship. The fact that maybe the Conservative Party are giving them, top-down orders not to go, because
they are.
Andre,
so
I can promise you, if you build that, it won't be the Conservatives that are censoring him. It'll be the Liberals, the NDP, and the Greens.
It's the same thing with the Liberal and the NDP. I took the Conservative because we feel that they're doing it. There was a sketch on the CBC with Pierre Poilievre and two of his candidates. I think it was in October, and they were starting to make fun of it because Poilievre was accused of censoring his caucus, and the show is about the sketch is about 2 minutes, and as soon as one is starting to talk, and the person who's impersonating Poilievre, he's turning around and the person disappears. Says, you see, they agree. You can find this sketch on internet. It's very funny. So if there's a sketch, there's a part of truth behind, and I think that when you're winning, in October they were about 45% and about 220 seats in the House. They were winning, so they were saying, "Shut up and don't go. We're winning. The order is don't go." If you're a member of Parliament, and I understand that you have to follow the line of the party, but up to a certain point, where's the freedom of speech? Even in any political party,
I think in a solutions-based response to what we've experienced, what you've experienced in debates, is there is a real opportunity for post-secondary institutions to restart public debates. And I mean, their literature programs, their English programs, their language programs, their business programs, right, et cetera, that they could reinvigorate this. I know that in the 50s and 60s, 50s in particular, debate in North American universities was a sport.
Yes, yes. I have a friend. I have a friend who's a
Well
lawyer, and
attended, yep,
he
right.
was in
Well
Harvard,
attended.
and
They
he
were
had to.
they were on TV. You had 20, 21-year-old, 23-year-olds with remarkable eloquence,
Yes.
you know, on public debates on national TV in the States and even in Canada. What's that show? Reach for the Top. Was a game show, was a public knowledge, or well, it was more academic knowledge
PBS.
for kids on CBC. And I remember watching it when I was very, very young. And so they had two teams of university kids or even high school kids that were squaring off on public knowledge, or not public, sorry, specific knowledge, you know, academic knowledge and whatnot. It's like a quiz show, but a quiz show for nerds. And it was astonishingly good quality material. And because
Well, you know,
these were young men and young women who knew their stuff.
I remember that in high school or college they were preparing teams to go and
Yes.
debate. So that was very interesting because let's say you're a young man or young woman, you're 16, you go to college and you want to become a lawyer. What do you do as a lawyer? You speak all the time to a judge. You speak to the jury and everything. So you have to be comfortable. They were preparing those young individuals for public debate. And after that, when you're in a public debate, you're in the house. You know how to speak. You know how to express your ideas. You know how to conclude. It's an art. That's Aristotle, art of language, art of rhetoric.
Yes. Yeah. It's there are opportunities here, and like even there are corporate opportunities even to provide. Well, look at the monk debates, what they used to be, right? They're not so much anymore, but what they used to be, and that Canada had a much more appreciation for the academic class, and over time that has been lost. And a lot of that I think a lot of that began to corrode with the Sea Shepherd, Greenpeace.
Well, Greenpeace, I remember one of
Earth Day phenomena was at 76 was the first Earth Day. So this began to corrode. It began to corrode the academic class because it was the academic class that was pushing the environmentalism, and so they began to lose credibility among mom and pops in the late 70s, early 80s. Were like, wait a minute, you want us to stop using paper bags to save the trees, and you want us to start using plastic bags because we're saving the trees. And here we are 30 years later getting rid of plastic bags because we're trying to save the oil, and we go back to using paper bags because fuck the trees.
Well, all the academic institution like universities, they were hijacked and they lost their credibility today. 14 years ago, I had a literature teacher in Montreal University, and when I did the bachelor's degree, the first year we had to read 80 books.
80?
And we had 80 books, novel, plays, poetry, essays, 80 books, 2-3 per day. You read Tolstoy, 500 pages, you have 2 or 3 to read. And in UQAM, the University of Quebec in Montreal, which is more, I would say, socialist, they did not have this program. And it was, for me, it was a shock because I'm a good reader. But the first year you read 80 books, the second year you read 40 books, but it is critical thinking, all those critical theory. And I can guarantee you the difference after that is incredible. And in 2010, they abolished this requirement. And my literature teacher at the time told me, he said, students, they arrive in university, first years in the bachelor's degree in literature, they don't know how to read. What are you doing in literature? What are you doing in literature? And that, I'm just talking about literature, not talking about mathematics or physics. So the demise of those institutions, we see the results now. People don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to be rational. they don't know how to write a text. They don't know how to express themselves. They don't have sense of humor. You know, in politics, you have to be able to make
Take a
jokes,
ribbon.
yes, and not take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
So I think
But
what we're seeing now, it's one consequences of maybe what you mentioned, 40 years of destruction of what would be universal.
So does this mean that the pool of available candidates also suffers from this phenomena?
I think so. I think so. I don't say they're not intelligent. They're very badly prepared.
Right. So that's like one of the things I learned, the most valuable lesson I learned in school was how to learn.
That's exactly.
Right.
We had
Right.
a teacher, Fernand Seguin. He was a teacher in university, and for 20 years he was having a show on Radio Canada every Sunday night, and people were watching him. And this man, what he was saying, he says, "I'm not here. I'm here to teach you how to learn and how to enjoy learning." And he was a very good communicator, you know, vulgarizator. It was incredible, and he was very famous. Today, you don't see this anymore. On mainstream media, you don't see this. It's entertainment, and that's it.
See, Govern points out a cultural phenomenon, right? And that is the way back to our Judeo-Christian traditions and culture, that 70s, 80s that we all felt comfortable in, regardless of the stuff going on around us, was where we saw kids mowing the neighbors' lawns and
Yes.
Where oh my goodness, trade schools were hosting evening classes that anybody could attend and things like this. We moved back, and so that the party has a unique opportunity to foment, I'm using that word again, it's my favorite word today, a culture of engagement at the local level, which speaks directly to what we've been talking about for 8 months now.
Yeah.
And that is local engagement, and the PPC has a very real opportunity to do this.
Let me so I'm going to address the second part first. Host free learning sessions. Tomorrow there is a free learning session I'm going to be live streaming it. Hopefully, a volunteer, Jan Schneider, will be talking to the economy, why the youth can't afford a house, how that's tied to the 70s with the banking reforms and what's going on. To the first part, help mow people's lawns, seniors' lawns. I went to a senior center yesterday, and I was very nervous because it's hard for me to be disingenuous. Like, it's election time and I'm going there to get people's votes, especially when they're seniors.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start somewhere, I suppose. And it would help. It goes back to 3 years and 11 months. If you start doing that 3 years, 11 months in advance, it's less disingenuous, but we have to find a way.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing that you're mentioning, Peyman. This is to be, with the COVID mandate, we were put in jail in our houses, and now we have to go back and try to reconcile with other people and meet them. Not on social media, not on internet, really in reality. And this is difficult when the links are either broken or people are indifferent. You have, as a public person, you have to go first. They will not come to you. Like you mentioned, you said you go to an elderly house. Yeah. I think it's important. Maybe they will not vote for you, but maybe they will appreciate. There's a lot of elderly people. They have no visits. Nobody goes to see them.
And let's say your local electoral district association was working with a candidate who chose to stay, right? Said, okay, I will make the commitment and we will build. So it's like the third-year hockey team in a brand new franchise and everything, right? So we will do this. And then so you have volunteer groups. You have a youth volunteer group, and then you have your business age class and whatnot. So you literally create specialized volunteer groups over time. And then you say, okay, every one of you in purple PPC shirts, and on the back it's going to say mowers. Or something, right? So you have 2 or 3 that go out and they just hit a lawn. They knock on someone's door and say, "We've got a lawnmower. Do you need your lawnmower?" And do you need your lawnmower? and then they're wearing the purple shirts, and they don't hand out nothing, they don't talk to nothing, they just go do the job.
Do the job. Be
Exactly
present
what
on
the
the.
Christian church is supposed to do, but we won't talk about that.
But one day we will have to, Tim, because it is something that we have to reconnect with.
Yes, we have to reconnect. We have to, so the only way to do it, the only way to get it is to do it.
Yes.
The only way to get it. So we talk about that, we complain, we say this is wrong, and that is wrong, and this is bent, and this is off kilter, and this is out of balance, and then we talk, well, what are the solutions? And that's what we do specifically on this show, is we like to rant and rave about the issues that are going on, but then we all come down and say, but it's no use to talk about it, there must be solution.
Well, I can talk about the interview I had with Nancy Mercier this week. And Nancy Mercier, she's a candidate for Madawaska Restigouche. But Nancy Mercier, 30 years ago, she had a very tragic car accident. She's paralyzed from the top till the bottom. And she was working, her lawyer was John Flaherty, was in finance ministry. And she fought to be able to go home. And she did a lot of things. And on the website of the New Brunswick PPC, her profile, it says that, and she's an extraordinary woman. Her slogan is, Nancy is not waiting for a solution, she creates them.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what you're mentioning. We have to create those solutions for people, and be there to help them. If you're not there to help them, and I honestly, Nancy is an extraordinary woman. She's writing a book about her experience. So you have some extraordinary people, some extraordinary Canadian who are willing to help other people, and will fight for those people. But we have to be visible.
Govern hits another interesting point there that the party itself has identified, and that is, we say we're going to do politics differently.
Yes.
Right. So when you look at Govern's last statement, you have to change the framing.
The frame of the party. And
the party has already framed it as doing politics differently. So the local level and actions at the local level are the execution of that ideology of we are doing politics different, or the concept of we are doing politics differently includes, like I said, it doesn't have to be connected to politics, not directly.
No,
not directly, right? Which kind of is counter to what I was saying about wearing purple PPC shirts, but
it's not that. It's because politics is everywhere. We have an idea of what is politics, but the word politics comes from the Greek polis. The public affair. When you're going to see your neighbor, you walk the street, you go to see your neighbor, you walk on a public road to see your neighbor, you're in the public affair, you're in the public domain. So we have to bring maybe this noble concept of what is really politics, helping people, representing people, supporting people, gathering with people.
So then is this an opportunity for the commoner to exercise noblesse oblige?
Yes.
Right? Where, because we no longer have an aristocratic class that into some degrees watches over and protects and provides the serf layer beneath it, aside from all the other stuff, they did have noblesse oblige. Because
they don't have any
very old European times, the knights and the captains and the lieutenants and they were from noble families, and they were required. They were required to fight.
You read War and Peace of Tolstoy, and all the courier, the people, the officer, they were all from the.
They were all from
aristocrat. In an aristocratic family, you always had to have a person who will do public office. That was a requirement. That was not even a suggestion. It was an obligation, a duty.
Yeah,
we don't have this anymore.
Marxism and socialism has worked hard to paint that in a more oppressive light, and I'm sure that these things are indeed the case. But lacking a noble class, an aristocratic class, with exception of the members of parliament, because I consider that a elected nobility, right? So lacking that, the people themselves. So it goes back again to our talks about grassroots energy and the people at the grassroots, and then the populism, which is an organized structure that maintains, schedules, activates, trains, leads, etc. So those two to come together. So then the noblesse oblige is the commoner saying, we're done acting like a political party.
Yes.
We are going to take our country back. And this is how we're going to do it.
Well, there's one thing that is interesting. You're mentioning noblesse oblige, or there's no aristocracy. Friedrich Nietzsche is always talking about the aristocracy of the heart or the mind. So it means that you have to act like this. I had a German neighbor, Italian German neighbor, and she was telling me, Andre, elegance, you're born with it because you cannot buy it. So I like this idea because elegance, if you are a public character, you have to you wear the suit. I'm sorry, now you have a lot of politicians, huh? You can put a suit on a pig, but it's still a pig.
Yeah.
And when you wear a
suit, what the mayor does and show up like he's on holiday in Bermuda.
Well, yes, that's the other
Tim Hortons drive-through.
So
guys, one more thing. There's something strange happening. That the event I'm having tomorrow, the gentleman that was going to speak, we were supposed to have it in the community center. The community center said, we can rent you a room, but you have to get insurance for $2 million. So yeah. even something as simple as that, it's dissuading people from getting involved in their community. It's almost impossible to find a place to host a small event.
Outside. Arthur Paslovsky, when they closed his church and they put him in jail, he said, we will do the mass outside. You cannot prohibit us to do it. But I do agree, they always try to find a way to cancel the event.
I want
that's censorship.
I want to correct that because I've been working with this since 2019. This is my third election with a district association. Every time we used a community venture, a community venue, venue, the even when we use the Rotary Park Stadium outdoors, the city required liability insurance. And I'm fine with that.
From who?
The liability insurance
who pays?
Provides for accidents, etc.
No, I do agree. I do agree with this, but
I'm okay with that. And to be honest,
it's a public event.
But it's in a venue under the management of Parks and Recreation. So that's the city department responsible for public venues or community centers, etc. I'm okay with that. And the most we paid, and I know it was around $2 million, was like $125.
Okay, it's not expensive, and it's for what? For 4 or 5 hours.
No, but like right. I was talking to Jan and about the event tomorrow, and I said, they're doing this everywhere, and he said, yeah, we're not really free anymore. When I came here 35 years ago, we had this thing called Persian New Year. You just start a bonfire on the beach and they jump over it. It's a crazy pagan tradition. Back 35 years ago, you just did it. Like you go to a beach, get some wood, and you start a fire. I went back for the first time in like 20 years. I went this year. Holy crap. There was police everywhere. The organizer has been talking to the police for 6 months.
Yes, it's a police state.
Insurance. Somebody came up and did the land declaration. They fenced off the area where there was the fires, and they had like a lineup, and they had fire extinguishers. We're not responsible free citizens.
There's a controversy. There's a controversy in Montreal now. Montreal Canadian. You see on the public buses, STM, Société des Transports de Montréal, the Canadian, Montreal Canadian are doing the playoff again, and you see on the sign, "Go Habs, go!" Habs, it is for Canadian habitants.
Les habitants.
Go, les habitants. Go Habs, go! The Ministry of language, le ministre de la langue française said it is against the policy of Quebec because it has to be written in French, so we will not cheer Canadian with "Go Habs Go" again. The idiot doesn't know history first, and go, it is an English word, so you're not allowed anymore to use it. And now the stupid idiot, it is backlashing on social media because they say, you're an idiot, you're a moron, you're starting to tell us what to do, but it is not new. So what you're mentioning about we're not free, we see it in small details in many things, and we have to fight back. Not
The,
just
the liability problem goes back to at least 1984-ish, 85-ish, when a little old lady from California driving through the McDonald's drive-through spilled hot coffee on her special bits and sued McDonald's for serving coffee that was too hot.
Too hot.
And she won.
Okay,
Now,
so
I have to let you finish the story, because this is one thing. We talk about the thin edge of the wedge, or we talk about the slippery slope. When the liability problem that rose out of this was cross corporations, because all of a sudden, right?
That's what I'm expecting.
all of a sudden, anything that could go wrong with packaging had to be live. And look at the language that's on packaging today. So when you find events like your own cultural event being layered behind, right, fenced behind layers and layers and layers of absolute stupidity, is because everybody is afraid of liability, and liability corporations themselves seizing the opportunity force lobby to make these things happen. And that's why where we are today. The set up annual street hockey tournament. Okay, so things like that will work, right? For example, one of our candidates.
That's very nice, because in a city in Quebec, the municipal council passed a law to forbid hockey playing in the street.
Well,
they need a permit. You can imagine that.
Not even that. That's where I was going. Like, how long until they say you need insurance to play hockey on the street?
Well, I can guarantee you, if I play hockey with my children, and I have a hockey stick and a puck, and there's a municipal inspector who comes by, a good slap shot, and he will just go away. They have to be careful what they're dealing with now. They have to be careful.
I'm going to give you a real example, very much in line with what Andre just said. Between 4 and 6, there will be a rally in one of my candidates' towns, one of the local high traffic areas. And he informed me, he said, the city told us we're not allowed to wave flags because flags are a distraction to drivers. And I said, give him the Elections Canada Act and tell him to fuck off.
Yes, you don't have the choice. You have to tell them in the face. We are arriving at a time where it's time to stand up.
Yeah, we are too busy trying to be diplomatic, thinking, well, this is who is Bonhoeffer? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, right? He wrote this letter to a friend of his while he was in jail about how don't try to be rational, or don't try to convince the stupid person.
Well, that's what I wrote in one of my essays. Right? In an asylum, you do not try to reason with a madman. You medicalize him.
Yeah. So we have to look at the men and women in the community or in our country who in the last 4 or 5 years have thrown themselves onto the barbed wire, right, of various events, and we have not gone over their bodies to take the territory beyond them. This is where we are. And so knowing that the enemy, knowing that there are going to be those of us who will throw ourselves on the barbed wire in an attempt to breach, right, to make the breach, and that the general public will not follow, what do you think the opposition is going to do? Make martyrs of everybody.
Yes.
So then all they do is they change the laws a little bit. Oh, you can't wave flags because it could be a distraction to cars. Fuck off.
Well, yes, I wanted to put a Russian flag here next to the Canadian flag, and my neighbors would have thrown stone at me. I was worried about the election night in Canada that maybe we would not have enough hair time, or
Oh,
but
do your plug. Do
I
your
will
plug.
be an anchor man. So Tim, I'm relieved now. You will have
Let's
you will
Andre,
have a lot of time to talk about.
do your plug for election night.
My plug for election night. Election night in Canada, April 28th, 2025, starting at 6:15 Eastern Daylight Time, 15 minutes before the polls close in Newfoundland. It is on the brand of our dear friend Peyman Askari in lay terms. So it's a show that will go for 5, 6, maybe 7 hours, because we will follow all the time zone. Newfoundland, Atlantic, Quebec, Ontario, Central Canada, and Pacific time. We will have a lot of guests, candidates from the PPC, commentators, political analysts, and I will be surrounded by 4 co-hosts: Mr. Tim Knight, David Gardner from the Freedom Conversation Convoy. I'm still waiting for the 2 other candidates to confirm their presence, and Peyman will jump in. It will be like our agent de liaison. I know Tim likes this French expression, on the
I was
battlefield.
going to say social butterfly.
And we will have other people like this who will chat with us about the results of the election, the turnout of the election, and we welcome you. It will start at 6:15, and we will try to have a professional show. Funny with good guests. So and it will be bilingual, en français and in English.
English and Chinese.
That's English.
Don't push your
Chinese
luck.
and Mandarin
Don't
and
push your
Hindi.
luck. Well,
Mandarin.
it can be Mandarin, Chinese, and Punjabi. Yes, I agree with you. But we can
The
have a
3 most
translation.
spoken languages in Canada.
The official languages.
And it will be a pleasure and an honor for me to be the anchor man, because it's on the brand of In Lay Term from Peyman Askari. So be with us.
And, at this time, about 35 people are signed on.
More close to 45. To 45, not counting the people who will contact us to come on a short interview. The co-host will be responsible to have small interviews with people on the ground in their local campaign office, something like this. So and we expect something interesting.
The general flow for each province or time zone will be Andre will host, and 1, maybe 2 co-hosts across that time zone will assist, and then political commentators will join in at times, and 2 or 3 or more, if we can get more, actual candidates from their watch parties and whatnot coming in live and sharing their experience with us. And it won't just be our 3 panel present. We're also going to probably bring up the CBC's national
results maps.
And so there'll be the national one and then the provincial one. And then if a candidate comes on, then we'll have that candidate's own district up as well. Probably pull that information from Elections Canada website, because that is fastest and will be most accurate.
Exactly.
So we're really trying to take an old-fashioned, like an 80s, 90s CBC, CTV approach, only highlighting People's Party of Canada and highlighting the candidates and those people who have participated in this election. We're really excited to make something very, very unique happen, and hoping that mainstream media completely loses their collective shit.
Well, when we started to when we evoked that idea, yes, thank you. He's quoting me. That's David Gardner from the Freedom Conversation podcast, who will be the first co-host for Newfoundland and Labrador and the Atlantic provinces. And yes, I think it's important to mention that we will try to enjoy ourselves for 6-7 hours, and to cover the election in a more professional way. And we will use those platforms because they provide a lot of information locally, provincially, or nationally. So c'est un rendezvous Monday night.
One more thing. There will be a couple of candidates that are not from the People's Party. The Libertarian
Yes,
Party is, I
Libertarian
believe,
Party.
Right.
two. Yeah.
Yes, they will come. They gladly accept our invitation, and
Yeah.
we'll be very happy to discuss with them.
There's some other Don Buckley, I believe, will be there. He's just a Canadian patriot, and he's volunteered with, like me, for the National Citizens Inquiry. So there's a lot of non PPC guys as well.
Yes, exactly. That's very important. That's why we will try to stay professional, neutral. Of course, it's a platform, or it will give visibility to the People's Party because we will follow the results in each provinces and nationally.
Should we? Are we all tuckered out for the night? Should we end it? Should we?
Yes,
No,
unless you have other secrets for us, Peyman.
No.
Well, maybe I will have one question for you. The campaign is finishing now. So, are you happy with the how it turned out? With the experience you had.
Yes.
30 days.
Yes.
You're still alive. That's good. Tired but alive.
Somewhat. What really, like yesterday at the senior home, some woman came out. She was giving the food out, and she said, "Hello, thanks for coming." I'm like, "Oh, you know me?" She's like, "Yes, I'll be voting for you." I was on the ferry to get to Seashelt, and I just went past this lady's car. She came out. She's like, "Are you Peyman Askari?" I goes, "Yeah." She's like, "I'll be voting for you."
Wow.
Just giving people the opportunity to vote. You're giving them hope. That gentleman that almost cried at the debate in Seashelt, I'm giving him hope. Gibson's 3 people came up to me and they said, that we got very badly mistreated. They were afraid to ask a question at the beginning, but they came out. Like, you're giving these people hope. So to all of these naysayers that say the PPC is splitting the vote, Maxime doesn't care, all of those people, you do your worst, and I'll do my best to give these types of people hope. So I have no regrets.
That's good. That's good. And that, I think that's a very beautiful Canadian value. We forgot that. We forgot that since many, many years. And we have I think we usually we try to avoid those type of conversation. And the fact that you were able to do that, not only in the last 30 days, but since 1 year now, in late terms, you gave a lot of people, you gave them the microphone, you let them express themselves, and that's really valuable. In my sense, that's real politics. After that, if you're elected, you're member of parliament, okay, you have the decorum, but I think that's the first part. That's what Tim was mentioning, how to educate candidates so they could become good members of parliament, good representatives. So, Tim, you want to add something?
Thank you very much, Peyman. This is hard work, and I'm sure you've fallen on your sword 100 times in the last 35 days, and yourself and a lot of other candidates with you. And yes, you are absolutely right. The scripture says, "Without hope, my people perish." Although some people say without, knowledge or without vision. But if you don't hope, you're done. And you and others like you are giving us hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim, Andre, and thanks to the audience. We'll see you on Monday.
Thanks.